Most swimmers spend years making the same mistakes again and again, thinking progress is about piling on endless lap after lap. But what if I told you there's a smarter, faster way to become a better swimmer without necessarily training harder, but swimming smarter? In this video, I'll share with you 10 powerful insights that took me years to learn. Insights that, if I'd known them earlier, would have saved me endless laps, endless years of swimming, but not really seeing much progression. Whether you're struggling with inconsistency, unsure if your technique is effective, or nervous about open water swimming, I'm going to show you exactly what to focus on to transform your swimming experience. Progress isn't linear. One thing that I didn't know growing up was that the progression wouldn't always be in this upward trajectory. It's almost like walking up a mountain with a yo-yo. That yo-yo will come up, it will go down, it will come up, it will go down, and we will see this upward progression, but sometimes we actually get a little bit slower before we get better. And often when people hit those bits where they've regressed in a way, they think that they're doing the wrong thing. But quite often, the progression is this up and down movement that if we can just persist through those harder times where we don't really see the results of the work we're doing, then we can come out the other side of it being a better swimmer. And so often people quit or they get disheartened that they're not getting better all the time. But sometimes we do have to work away at things for several months and often several years to really get to that next level, especially as we are getting quicker and getting better, getting towards the pointy end of the field. So at the start, you often see a lot of improvement early on, but that's not always the case as you get quicker. Video yourself early. The first time I ever got filmed was about 8 years into my swimming journey. And I thought, this is going to look amazing. I have swum for a long time. I've reached a pretty good level in my swimming. This is going to look amazing when I look at this footage. But the reality was that there were so many things I was doing wrong that I didn't even know about. Yet I had trained for a long time. I thought I was swimming incredibly well. So if you can video yourself early on in your journey, you will progress so much faster than someone who goes 10 years without ever having seen themselves swim. I often have a lot of members who send through their videos for analysis, and the first comment they make is, I can already see 5 things I'm doing wrong, because they'd never filmed themselves before. And so that is such a crucial step to fast tracking your progression as a swimmer. Swimming is as much a mental game as it is a physical game. Quite often people think that the way to get faster is to get fitter and get stronger. And absolutely that counts for a large part of it. But there's a big aspect of swimming that is all about the mental side of it. Even if you are a beginner, sometimes that mental side of it can impact you more than the physical side of it. Because sometimes we get caught in our heads where we think that this is an unsafe place to be, or we think, oh, I'm not any good at this, so we tend to panic or we tend to be short of breath. So if you can control the mental side of it and make sure you're training with that just as much as the physical side of it, that will help you progress a lot quicker than if you're focused on just the physical aspect of it. And the faster you get, the higher up you get in swimming, that's often where the mental games play a big part of it too. If you watch the Olympics and you look at the top 2 to 3 competitors in any event, sometimes it comes down to just the mental side of it. And who's been able to keep their nerve all the way for those 4 years leading up to the Olympics. So controlling the mental game as much as the physical game. Just swimming more doesn't guarantee your progress. Certainly there's an element to having to swim consistently, putting in the yards, putting in the kilometers. However, if you're just swimming without any focus and your technique isn't that great, then you're probably inspilling or training bad habits. And if your technique isn't up to scratch, you're going to hit this ceiling where you can't get any faster. So a good way to approach the swimming is, yes, we need to be consistent, but we also need to make sure that the laps we're doing are of a certain standard and a certain quality. Because if we're training bad habits with our technique, then we are going to limit ourselves. Now, it doesn't mean to be overly cautious and not do more than 25 meters without stopping. We need to allow some leeway in there. However, make sure that you're not just going up and down with this really ugly, scrappy technique. Make sure you're training to a pretty decent level. 80, 90% of your good technique is often a good approach there. And as you're doing some harder sessions, yes, you're going to fatigue. Your stroke's going to break down a bit. So you don't need to stop straight away as soon as something drops off, but we do need to be aware of it. And sometimes we just need to find that balance between putting in the hard work, having a stroke break down, but not letting it break down too much where we're training a really bad form. The clock can help, but don't worship it. Quite often people will put their self-worth as a person, as a swimmer, on what their Garmin tells them at the end of a session. But you are going to have days where you are absolutely flying and you feel like you're hardly putting in any effort and you're hitting amazing times. And there will be other days where no matter how hard you try, you cannot get even close to what you know you're capable of doing. So that's going to happen no matter whether you're an Olympian or whether you are brand new to swimming. If you can just continue with your swimming and use the clock, but don't worry too much about the times that you're doing. If you can just continue and be consistent with things, then over time you will progress in this upward trajectory. But the clock is only a very small part of swimming, especially with the ups and downs that you're going to encounter throughout a week, throughout a month, and throughout a year. Your stroke does not have to look like the pros. One of our most popular videos, in fact, our most popular video that we did on this channel was a video of Dan Smith swimming a 1 minute 10 100 in what looked like 2 minutes, where he was absolutely cruising to hit a 110, but he made it look very easy. Now, his stroke is amazing. Olympic level swimmer, incredible technique, yet that sort of way of swimming is not probably the best way for a lot of the people that I coach who are adults, who are triathletes, because they have different mobility, particularly through the feet, through the shoulders, through their rotation. And that sort of technique is not what they might need to do in order to be the best swimmer that they can be. So there's so many different styles. If you watch the Olympics in an 8-person final, there might be 8 different styles of freestyle in there. So it's best to find a style that suits you. In our elite swimmer section in the membership, we have triathletes, open water swimmers, Olympic pool swimmers. There's a variety of different types of swimmers in there. And if you look at the differences between them, there are some big differences. And so what I suggest to a lot of people is find a swimmer that looks a bit like you in how they swim, maybe their build, maybe their mobility, and try and copy their technique. Try and aim towards something like that. Because if you're trying to swim like Dan Smith, then you might actually be slowing yourself down because that sort of style isn't best suited to you. So you don't have to look like a pro, or maybe don't have to look like the swimmer that you aspire the most to be, because that might not be the best style for you. You might actually be holding yourself back. Comfortable gear matters more than fancy gear. The good thing about swimming is you can get away with having a swimsuit and some goggles, and that is all you need to swim. Unlike cycling, unlike a lot of other sports that require a lot of investment in terms of money to be good at it, swimming is very simple. So don't get caught up in needing the latest or the most expensive gear. Quite often, you don't actually need much to be a good swimmer. So if you just keep to the basics, get some gear that's comfortable, some good goggles, cap, a good swimsuit, that will take you a very long way. Now, there is other gear that can be worth getting, and it's worth getting a good pair of fins. It's worth getting a snorkel and maybe some paddles if you're doing triathlon, but you don't actually need a lot. So don't feel like you need all the gear to be a good swimmer. You can keep it basic. Have a goal, even a small one. When you first start swimming, your goal might be 50 meters without stopping. And that's a good goal to start with. Then as you get going in your swimming, sometimes we kind of get caught in the weeds a bit and we forget to actually set our next target. And sometimes it just needs to be a certain race, maybe a certain distance or a certain pace that you're trying to achieve for a 1K time trial. But even having a small goal to work towards will give you that little bit of motivation you need to put in the work to get there. I've been caught quite quite a few times without having set a main goal. And so my training's been there and I've been going up and down, but I haven't really put in the effort because there's nothing to work towards. Yet when I set a really difficult goal for me, which was the Rocknest Channel, which is a 20-kilometer swim, when I was doing that, I got to the pool 5 times a week. I was driving an hour plus into Melbourne to do some of my open water swims. And I did whatever it took to do that. So sometimes we need this bigger goal to actually bring us forwards and bring us closer to our swimming goal. We need something that kind of scares us a little bit, or we know we have to push towards. And there'll be times in your swimming journey where you might just cruise for a little bit, and then times where you set yourself a bigger challenge. But the mistake I've been caught in so many times is not actually setting a target or a goal, and then 6 months or 12 months of training, it doesn't go to waste, but I certainly don't put in the same amount of effort as if I've got a big challenge to work towards. Learn how to stay calm in the chaos. In open water swimming, the elements can change all the time, and you might be thrown into situations where you're not necessarily very comfortable. So when it comes to training in the pool, one simple way that I like to use for our swimmers to get comfortable in being in these chaotic conditions, first thing is you can do some pack swimming. If you've got a group of swimmers, if you swim down a lane with 4 or 5 or 6 of you all together, and you're not swimming over the top of each other, but you're having people push your feet down, swimming very close, getting used to having other people around and used to that chaos, that's a good way to get used to it. Another thing you can do is breath control. So we'll often do sets where it's like 850s, where we breathe every 3 strokes, 5, 7, and then 9. And when you're breathing every 9 strokes, you have got quite a while between your next breath. And you might feel like you're running out of air, and that can cause you to panic. But if you can get comfortable being in that sort of position, and then you can push yourself to maintain breathing every 9, that's a good way to actually have that calm in that chaos. So breath control is a really good way to have to force the mind to calm down in order to hit that breath control. So there are ways that you can help be calm in chaos by training in the pool and not just doing that in the open water. There's a whole world of swimming beyond the pool. When I was growing up, all I knew was the pool, the black line. I had no idea about open water swimming, swimming holidays, swimming trips, swimming camps. There is so much more to swimming beyond the pool. And so if you don't necessarily enjoy going up and down the black line, that is okay. There is so much other things that you can do around the water and with your swimming that you might enjoy more. And so it's about finding something that you like, and then you're probably going to stick with it, and then you're probably going to progress a lot more than you would if you did something you don't enjoy. Now that said, I love swimming in the pool. I love training with a squad and going through hard sets. But in terms of competition, I really enjoy open water swimming. And so now that I've found that, that's the thing that I mostly do in terms of competitive racing. And so when it comes to the pool, that's not necessarily where my head's at right now. But the thing is, just do what you enjoy. And that's usually the thing that's going to actually motivate you. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video with Andy Donaldson, who held 1 minute 12 per 100 for 4 hours.